the wonderful name of our Lord and our Savior Jesus Christ. I'm a Cape Townian, I'm a carpenter. I'm one of the minority of people in Cape Town. I was actually born here. Although I was raised in Rhodesia, and that was very formative, and I must say I learned a lot growing up amongst the wildlife in Rhodesia. But I've been an advocate for an independent Cape of Good Hope for many decades. It's always been a good idea, but now it's absolutely essential. There's no choice anymore. It's not a matter of do we like it or not. It's a matter of survival. It's an absolute essential. We either go down with the Titanic or we launch out an independent Cape of Good Hope. That's the only option before us. Now, I'm a missionary, and for 38 years I've had the privilege of traveling in 42 countries across 4 continents and working in 38 countries. And that included back in 1980s during the Cold War behind the Iron Curtain, and I ministered throughout Eastern Europe during the dark days of communist persecution. And I saw the formative beginnings all the way through to the success of the independence movements, the secession movements in Eastern Europe. When I first heard the people in Croatia and Slovenia talking about their plan to secede from Yugoslavia, we were behind the Iron Curtain. It was the 1980s. It was one-party communist dictatorship. And I must admit, I was more than skeptical. I was completely and utterly disbelieving that they had a snowball's chance in hell of ever getting independence. Yet, in just a few short years, I saw both Croatia and Slovenia achieve independence. Slovenia after a 9 days war, Croatia after a longer struggle, but they are free, independent, and successful. Dubrovnik, that was once shelled mercilessly for a long time, is now a beautiful tourist location, and Croatia is, in fact, a wonderful place to live and a tremendous example. And it used to be a communist hellhole. I mean, honestly, you can't exaggerate how bad it was. I saw the independence movements of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia blossom and bloom from just a few people campaigning, petitions, overseas. But nobody's going to give you independence. You've got to work for it on the ground. Overseas, you might get some sympathy, but ultimately, until the people on the ground achieve their independence, you won't get much from overseas except maybe a good luck. But the good thing is that Croatia did a good job in seeing that at least Helmut Kohl of Germany, West Germany then, was the first to acknowledge the independence, and then others followed of Croatia. There was a lot of hard work done by the Latvian, Lithuanian, and Estonian communities overseas, so that America rushed to recognize their independence when they broke away from the Soviet Union in 1991. Czech and Slovakia broke away in an amicable divorce without any bloodshed, any fighting. There wasn't even any major demonstrations in the street. But Czech and Slovakia, which had been created out of nowhere at the Versailles Treaty, was dismantled in 1993 by a peaceful referendum without any bloodshed. And so there's a whole lot of models. As was said, you don't have one model because every country is unique. But not too far from us, Namibia, 1990. Now, I had over 1,200 meetings in Namibia over the years, for Southwest Africa, and of course been there since. But Namibia seceded from South Africa in 1990, and we should all remember that. Yeah. And people are saying, how can the Western Cape survive economically? We've got a far bigger economy, population, everything going for us than Namibia had. And can I be blunt? Namibia is doing better right now than we are. In terms of low levels of crime, taxation, the fuel's even cheaper there. So if people say, how can the Western Cape be a successful independent country, ask them if they remembered Namibia. You know, it's not that far away. In fact, it's the nearest sovereign state to the Cape right now. There's no other foreign country closer to us. And they're actually doing quite well. The country that I've been the most involved in fact, from 1995 to 2005, it was our mission's primary focus. And I conducted over 1,200 meetings during 27 missions to South Sudan. And to see South Sudan go all the way to independence, referendum in 2005, full independence in 2011, has been one of the greatest experiences and achievements of my life. I was campaigning for an independent South Sudan before any of the leaders of the South Sudan movement believed in it. I was arguing with Commander Salva Kiir, at that point second in command of the Sudanese People's Liberation Army. He's now the president of South Sudan. Commander Silver Keir was telling me it's absolutely impossible. There's no way that South Sudan could ever get independence, he said. Now I'm talking about 2001 arguments. The man is now president of South Sudan since 2011. He said it's absolutely impossible. The Berlin Conference lines have never been redrawn, not since 1885. None. And if somebody says Eritrea, that's also not true, because Eritrea was independent in 1885, was forced after the Second World War to be part of Abyssinia, and they called it Ethiopia, and they just re-achieved what was a pre-1945 stupid Allied redrawing of the map. And so Eritrea has gone back to what it was before. But the African Union has been one of the biggest problems and stumbling blocks in the way of independence, because they have treated the Berlin Conference of 1885 as sacrosanct. Well, who designed these boundaries? Latitude, longitude, river. The fact that you've got the Vamba tribe half in Angola and half in Namibia, half speaking Portuguese and half speaking Afrikaans, half driving on the right hand side of the road, half driving left hand side of the road, in different time zones, doesn't make any sense to anybody. But that's how the Shangaan, half in Mozambique, half in South Africa. And the Chichewa, half in Malawi, and the other half are scattered between Mozambique and Zambia. It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's not right. It's not just. But the African Union has treated as absolutely sacrosanct, dropped down from heaven on gold tablets. You cannot redraw the map. The colonials are all evil, but you can't change their borders. And of course, they want all their fruit. So we in the Cape have a great cause for independence, and I know that it's possible. It's a foundation. It's an information war first and foremost. So in Sudan, I must have done over 1,200 meetings inside Sudan and more than 1,000 meetings outside Sudan, campaigning for South Sudan's independence. This is the third edition of a book I wrote. I wrote the first one in 1996, the second edition 1998, this one in 2010 when they had achieved the independence. They were just on the brink of getting it because the referendum and everything had been accepted. And this message of the importance of Cape and of Sudan independence, I campaigned on radio and TV everywhere from Berlin and Frankfurt through to London, Washington, D.C., through to Los Angeles, all over the world, campaigning for it, speak on radio, TV, meeting with congressmen, senators. It's a big battle. But to be honest, one of the biggest problems wasn't convincing people outside Sudan that black Christians in South Sudan should not be colonized by Arab Muslims who are burning their churches, bombing their towns, bombing their hospitals, enslaving their people, crucifying their pastors. South Sudan should be free. They've got a different alphabet, they've got a different calendar, they've got a different language, different on every level. Why on earth did Britain ever force the people of South Sudan, overwhelmingly black people, to be under the Arab North? So I was arguing with, for example, Commander Silver Keir, you will never be free as long as you're a minority of black Christians in an Arab Muslim country under Sharia law. And they said, they agreed, but it'll never happen. It'll never happen. It's impossible. It cannot be done. It cannot be. The Arabs would never allow it. It cannot be done because the Berlin Conference boundaries of 1885 would never be redrawn. And to argue with them, to convince the Sudanese, the South Sudanese, that their independence was not just viable and desirable, but that it was achievable. And yet it happened. And as somebody who's seen, I was just a witness to the independence movements in Eastern Europe. But in South Sudan, I was a prime mover with the people there, saying, if you want peace and freedom and a hope for your children, for the future, you've got to own your own future. You can't be a minority in your own country. You've got to redraw the map until each community is a realistic, genuine community. And these gerrymandering of communities won't help. The essential building block of society's families. But the extension of that is the municipality of the community. Municipal rights were one of the most foundational rights built in a Christian Europe in the Middle Ages. The community that pays the taxes have to control how those taxes are gathered, how much tax are gathered, and all the different municipal rights. These municipal rights stood for 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years, as absolutely inviolable. And in 1995, President Nelson Mandela smashed up our municipalities and forced on us the Unicity. Now, amongst all the bad things done by Nelson Mandela, I personally think this is the worst. Para used to be a well-run, efficient, clean, neat, safe community. Belleville, Pinelands had its own police force, their own 8 policemen, Pinelands' own law-abiding. We hadn't had a murder there in decades before they dismantled our independent little police force, their own little town. We knew our mayor. He used to come to our church. We knew the town councillors. Our little community of 4,500 homes, 15,000 people in Pinelands. We were our own community, and it was virtually crime-free. We didn't need burglar bars, security gates. We didn't need armed response. We didn't need community improvement districts. We lived in a community where you could walk to school and cycle at all hours of night, and you were safe. And that's the way it used to be. But when they took these municipalities away from the communities and turned it into one big giant unicity, what was that? A cover for colossal corruption, looting on a grand scale. BBBEE is nothing other than a cover for the biggest looting of this country imaginable. And we know about it. We cannot operate on the basis of entitlement. People need to have an attitude of responsibility and ownership. And there's no hope for our future or for our children or for our children's children until we regain control of our municipalities. Yeah. Police should come from the municipality, be trained by the municipality, be answerable and accountable to the municipality. And police from the community will protect the community and the community's property because it's their home. Yeah. But you bring someone from Soweto, what does he care if your trains get burned in Cape Town and if your shops get looted and pillaged on here? It's not his. He didn't pay for it. It's not his family. His children don't go there. But today, this is the way it works. If you're a nurse from Pinelands, you won't be allowed to work in a hospital in Pinelands. You've got to be shipped off to Khayelitsha. Somebody from Soweto might work in your hospital. So you will always have people who don't know you, don't know your community, don't like you, might want to kill you. And they're the people who you've got to, when you're at your most vulnerable, when you're sick, they're the ones who deal with you in the hospital. It's not just who's teaching your children, it's not just the police at the... We had such a relationship with our police in our community in Pinelands. We used to bake cakes every Christmas and take them. We'd take them cookies, we'd have relationships. We knew the people in the post office. We were a community. Now it's smashed. We don't have one single Pinelander serving us, whether it's in our hospital, whether it's in our police station, whether it's in our shops, at any point, not even at the petrol station. It's all foreigners everywhere. It's completely turned around, so you're no longer a genuine community. Our constitution speaks about common language, religion, ethnicity, culture, history. This is what it's all about. That we are a self-determination group. And this is what I have fought for decades, to see South Sudan, black Christian people, Dinka, Moro, Krongo, Haiban, Zandi, all of these groups, Bari, that they've got their own communities, that they own their own country, and they're not under some foreigners. As they said in Sudan, we are fighting the last war of decolonialization in Africa, for Africans to be free from Arabic colonialism. Well, it was a war against colonialism, but it's not the last. We in Cape Town are being colonized by foreigners. Yeah. And we in the Cape, as Jack said, we've got a heritage where Company is. Why on earth should we tolerate this? The woman who was murdered just this last week. This is not acceptable. This is not normal. This isn't natural. This isn't right. We shouldn't tolerate it. How many times must this happen? And we've got police who don't care because they're not from here. They're not our community. They don't care. They've just been pushed here. National police is a complete and utter total failure. In Switzerland, which I visited many times, South and Cape, my second favorite country, Switzerland's an example of excellence. We should not be following in the footsteps of failure. Why are we following the mentality of Zimbabwe? Robert Mugabe's ZANU-PF. I can tell you how that ends, and most of you know. We don't want to go there. Why don't we follow Switzerland? Decentralization. Every one of those 26 cantons has their own police force, their own legislature. They have their own flag. They have their own laws. They have their own taxes. They have a whole lot of and it works. And by the way, Switzerland seceded from Austria in 1291. So Switzerland's the oldest example I can think of secession. And Switzerland works. It works well, and nobody wants to mess with the Swiss because they aren't just neutral, they aren't neutral. And by the way, they fought. I don't know how many people are aware of it, but during the Second World War, they did fire bullets. They shot down British, American, French, and German planes, military planes that came over their borders. They interned tens of thousands of Allied airmen and others who crash landed while there, and British, French, German, and American and Italian violated their territory testing, and they fought and they defended and they kept themselves in the bed. They had the highest mobilization in Europe in the Second World War. 80% of their manpower was mobilized during the Second World War, higher than even Germany. And they kept their country free and independent out of this genocidal war where people were murdering one another by the hundreds of thousands, bombing cities. Switzerland kept their independence by not getting involved, no entangling alliances, but they did defend their own territory. Now, Switzerland's a great example. Singapore's a spectacular example. As Jack said, a swamp with no natural resources, and it turned it into one of the most sparkling examples of free enterprise. If the Cape is to succeed, we've got millions of jobless all over the place. The only solution is not more taxes, not more socialism, no taxes, tax haven. Get rid of GST, get rid of VAT, get rid of the whole lot. It's only a feeding trough for criminals. The DANC has overtaxed us on this water crisis. You know, this water crisis is not the worst drought in 127 years. It's not the worst drought in 10 years. It's the worst drought in maybe 8 years, but it's the worst water mismanagement in our country's history. They overtaxed us 1.6 billion rand in the Cape Town municipality just in the first 18 months of the so-called drought. They called it underspent. That's overtaxed in our terminology. Have they brought the punitive levels of water prices down since you've noticed the drought broke a long time ago. We haven't had a drought for a very long time. And I think what they should have done is, there was prayers for rain. How about having Thanksgiving that the drought's over, God sent the rain, and get on with our life? Because Cape Town depends on tourism, and Cape Town depends on the film industry, and many have cancelled conferences and projects and films in the Cape because they heard, Cape Town, you're not allowed to flush your toilets or have a bath or a shower even in a hotel in Cape Town, which isn't true, but that's what BBC and CNN reported. Top of the news hour. And Cape Town's got such bad press. The first city in the world to run out of water was how it was billed in the BBC. It's a disgrace. The DANC are a complete and utter failure, criminal gang. I speak about the cancer government. The middle letters of cancer is ANC. So you put the small c, capital ANC, and then a small ER whenever you talk about the government. What's a cancer? It's a cell in your body that doesn't contribute to the health of the body. It breaks down the health of the body. Now, my wife's fighting cancer for the third time round. It's in the bones, stage 4. The first battle was 2010, 2015, and now this year. She's done everything, the surgery, the radiation, the chemotherapy. We hate cancer. Let me tell you, this government, and I include that DA in it, the DANC, they are cancer. They exist to corrupt, to steal, to loot. They're a gangster state. They're a bunch of criminals. They are a mafia. This is a gangster state, and state capture is not even telling a half bit. According to the African Union, we have 1/3 of our total GDP stolen by government every year through corruption. What, left or over?
Left.
We have 1/3 of our total GDP, gross domestic product in South Africa, stolen by government every year. 1/3. That's not counting the taxation. That's not counting the inflation. It's just counting the corruption. According to the African Union Task Force on Corruption, 1/3. It used to be a quarter. Now it's 32% of our GDP is stolen by corruption. Honestly, just imagine how advanced we could be if we hadn't had all this corruption and BBBE affirmative action. Imagine how advanced we will be when we break free of all this corruption. We don't need taxation. All we need is maybe a TEAL, Total Economic Activity Levy, applied across the board for every economic transaction by bank, of 1%. In fact, I don't even think it needs 1%. I think 1/4% would do just fine if you bring government within its own limits. If Cape Town became a tax-free zone, we would sort out the unemployment problem quickly. Withdraw socialism. No free anything for anybody. Everyone's got to work. And suddenly you'll find the parasites and the criminals will go back. You want to get rid of the flies, you get the trash can out of the kitchen. If we want to get rid of the dead weight of criminals, thieving, murdering people like this 430-year-old woman from this farm in the Philippines, and where did the people of arrest come from? Informal settlement of Igoli right next to the farm. The DA has attracted these criminals to Cape Town by the most efficient socialism, free housing, free everything, nothing for our people, but lots for the foreigners. They're pouring in here. Why? Because of lots of free things. You know, you've got open trash cans, you've got lots of free things, you'll get hordes of parasites, you get lots of mosquitoes and flies, and what we're getting in our society is the criminal elements. They will go when the free things stop. And workers who want to work will pour in as we find tax haven. Businesses will want to come here like they go to Singapore or Hong Kong, because when there's taxes, the companies move. When there's a tax haven, the companies come in. So we can solve our problems of unemployment and the other economic problems by getting rid of the taxes, getting rid of the government, and going back to what we had when I was growing up in Rhodesia. My school teacher was a member of Parliament, Mr. Reece Davies. He's a history teacher and he's a member of Parliament. And I was a little confused and I said, "But don't you work at Parliament?" He says, "You've got to have a real job." He said, "We don't get paid to be members of Parliament." And I'm talking about 1974. We don't get paid. We volunteer our time. There was a time when the town councillors, members of Parliament, were all voluntary members. They did it as an honorary service to the community. So they had to be successful in their own right. The Prime Minister and the Cabinet Ministers got paid. Not much. Do you remember in the days of Jan Smuts? There were 5 members of our Cabinet. 5 members of the Cabinet under Smuts. And he himself had 5 Cabinet positions. Probably too much, but he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Defence, Ministry of National Parks and whatever else. But you didn't have several people per ministry. And what do you need a Ministry of Youth and Culture for? Why do we need a Ministry of Sports? Sack the whole bunch of them, decentralize everything, make everything free enterprise. Once we get rid of the taxes and so on, you won't get the thieves and the criminals and the parasites pouring into politics to make our lives worse and steal and loot the entire country. But we'll attract the right people, because how many people want to volunteer to work for the community? Only those who really, really care about the community and have investments in it. We don't want these parasites here. So, God bless you all. I think we've got a simple system. Go down with the Titanic or launch out in the Independence Cape of Good Hope.